Okay, here is a recipe for the bread that I served to Lisa and Dee. It comes out of this book by Ken Forkish, Flour, Water, Salt, and Yeast, and it is called the Overnight White Bread. So you start it in the evening, like 6 o'clock, and you bake it, or you get it ready to bake 12 to 14 hours later, so it's ready by lunch the next day. And it's super simple, 4 ingredients. So here is 1,000 grams of all-purpose flour. I weigh it out instead of using cups, and I always put in a little bit more, like 20, 30 grams more, because I find the dough otherwise is just too loose. Then you add, how much salt is this? 22 grams of sea salt. You just shake that all in, and a very tiny amount of yeast. I use instant, but you can use quick rise as well. It works just as well. And it calls for a scant quarter teaspoon. So not even a quarter teaspoon of yeast. Can you come a little closer with the camera? Because I don't think you can see. There you go. My hubby Scott is videotaping. So the next part, it calls for water, and the big thing here is temperature. So I actually checked the temperature of my water. It's supposed to be between 32 and 35 degrees Celsius. So it feels like a formula temperature. If you were giving your baby formula, I think that's about the right temperature. But do measure it, because the temperature makes a difference. And then I also measure it by weight. So it calls for 780 grams. So I have it on my scale, and I'm just pouring in, and I'm looking for 780 grams. If you feel this is too risky to pour it directly, just weigh it out into a separate container. And I just ran this water from the sink, because I know roughly how much I need, and I checked the temperature as it was coming out of the sink. 780. Okay, I'm almost there. 730. You don't want to go over. There you go, 780. Oh, just right. Okay, so that's the water. My hands are washed. And now with just your bare hand, you mix this up. This is kind of the dirtiest, kind of a squishy job. So mix it all in to combine. I'm just kind of using my fingers so my whole hand doesn't get messy. Can you bring the camera in? So can you see? And I'm using this tub because Ken Forkish, for all his bread recipes, he uses this kind of a tub. And it's just, I'm just used to it now. It's really easy to knead it out in this. So all I'm doing is combining. There's really no kneading with this bread. I'm just combining all the liquid in with the flour, so that there's no dry flour. Okay, I think we'll pause it now, and I'll show it to you once it's all combined. Okay, so the dough is just all mixed and combined. You see, that's what it looks like. It's not kneaded at all, and it's pretty loose and sticky. And I cover it up. You can cover it with a plastic or dishcloth, and if you're not using this kind of a bucket, and then it sits for half an hour. So it's been half an hour. The dough is just sitting as it was before, and now you wet your hands so that it doesn't stick. And this is kind of the beginning of the kneading process. And what I'm doing is I'm pulling without ripping the dough. So you're stretching it, and you're starting to create, help the gluten form. So I'm just pulling and folding over. Then I'm also going to squeeze. You see that it's not really sticking to my hand. And you can wet your hand as much as you want at this point. And I'm using the water is slightly warm so that I don't cool the dough down, because it's feeling nice and warm. Okay, now take a look at what it looks like at this point. So it's kind of forming into a bit of a bun. And you repeat this process 2 more times. So a total of 3 of these fold and squeeze processes, every 20 minutes to half hour apart. So I'm gonna do that, and I'll show you what it looks like at the last fold. Okay, so I'm doing my last fold. So I left it for only 25 minutes between the the folds. I find that you can get away with that. And it's just looking a lot smoother, but it's really not holding its shape yet, and that's okay. And again, I'm going to pull and stretch, but now when I do that, the dough is just sticking together much nicely, and it's starting to feel really nice and smooth. So it's already kind of holding a bun shape. I never flip it over. I just keep it like this, like it's no big deal. So from the time you mix it to the time you're kind of done with it in the evening, it's 2 hours in total, but it only takes a few minutes, you know, every 20 to 30 minutes to sort of get it ready. And this stretching just helps the gluten to form and helps it to maintain a nice shape when we shape it into a loaf. But that doesn't happen until tomorrow morning, so I'm done with this for now. I'm gonna just flip it over because this thing is just falling over a little bit too much for my liking. So I'm just gonna flip it right over. There we go. And that's what it looks like. And then you have till tomorrow morning. They say the recipe says 12 to 14 hours. I think it's pretty forgiving. You know, usually by 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at the latest, I would get at it. It is now 8 o'clock in the evening. And then I will record how I shape it and bake it. Good night. Okay, so it is the next day morning. It is almost 9 o'clock, so it's been going for about 13 hours. And if you look at the dough, you'll see that it is really bubbly, and I would say it has more than tripled in size, so that's fine. Don't leave it much longer because then it'll just collapse. I have floured 2 bannetons because this will make two 2-pound loaves of, or about 1.5 pound loaves of bread. And now we just need to shape them. So I use this little scraper to get it all out, and floured hand to work it. And we're not gonna knead it, we're just going to shape it into loaves and pop it into the baskets. So let me get that out. The other thing I forgot to say yesterday when I mixed the dough, you can add flavors or things into the dough. I almost always put in flaxseed, or you can put garlic and herb, or caraway seed, or sort of flavorings, not really heavy seeds, but sort of flavoring type seeds. Okay, so I scraped all this out. Now I have my loaf, and I'm going to cut it roughly in half where I think a half is. So this is kind of a little bit bigger, so I'm going to kind of go here, and I have my half, and then I'm just going to shape this into a loaf. And by shaping, I'm just folding the ends over, not really kneading, getting some of the gas bubbles out, but not intentionally so. It has rejoined itself, so sort of like that. And then shaping, pulling so that the skin on the bread gets a little tight and helps it hold its shape. So I'm just pulling and sort of making the top a little tighter. I can still see that there are some bubbles there, that's fine. And so when I leave it, it's kind of holding its shape somewhat. So at this point, with the correct side down, with the smooth side up, it goes into the banneton, which has been floured. And I'll put a little bit more flour around it and pop it into plastic. And then it proofs for about an hour and 15 minutes. And about 30 minutes into the proofing, I turn the oven on to 475. You can get away with 450. I use my cast iron Dutch ovens for both of them. I put them side by side in the oven. And when the bread is nicely proofed, which means you poke it and it slowly comes back, like it makes a good indent, but it returns, that's when it's perfect. Hour 15, sometimes an hour 30, depending on the weather. It goes in the oven. You put your cast iron ovens into cast iron pots into the ovens so they get super hot. Pull them out, pop the bread in just the way it is. Oh, you flip it upside down actually. You flip it upside down so it's pretty easy to put in. Bake for half an hour with the lids on, take the lid off. You can bake it as long as another 25 minutes or less, depending on how dark you want the crust, and then you end up with 2 beautiful loaves of bread. So hope it goes well. Let me know. Take care. Bye. Okay, and this is it after 55 minutes in the oven. I let it go quite dark. One of my pots makes it quite a bit darker than the other. This one's a little bit lighter, but the dark tastes very caramelly. It doesn't taste burnt at all. And listen to it crackle. Oh yeah.